Kia ora and welcome back to Returning to Wholeness. Today's guest is a truly inspiring wahine whose work beautifully weaves together healing, creativity and wairua. I'm honoured to be joined by Danielle Renee Harris, founder of Erere Wairua, a holistic healing and whole space dedicated to uplifting and empowering the mana and mauri of every person. Through Rongoā Māori, Reiki embodiment, coaching, leadership, and the healing power of spoken word, Danielle creates spaces where people can reconnect with themselves, their whakapapa, and the wisdom that already lives within them. E rere wairua. In this episode, we explore Danielle's journey, the meaning behind e rere wairua, the role of wairua in healing, the power of our voice, and how remembering who we truly are can become one of the greatest pathways back to wholeness. This conversation is rich with insight, aroha, and gentle wisdom, and I know it will leave you feeling inspired to reconnect with your own inner knowing. So settle in, take a deep breath, and enjoy this conversation with the beautiful Danielle Renee Harris.
Tuai te mauri o te mauri a rangi te mauri a papa te mauri a yo te hotopu e. Tau wana te mauri o ngā tū. Tau wana te mauri o ngā tūpalu. Tau wana te mauri o te tangata. A ka tau ai, ka tō ai, ka te mauri re, ui e. Ai.
Kia ora e hoa, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. It is beautiful to have you here with me. How are you?
Thank you for having me here. It's really it's an honor to be in this co-creative space with you, and thank you for having me on.
Let's introduce you to everyone. First, starting with your ingoa, your name. Who are you?
Ko wai au. Ko Danielle Renee Harris Holmes. E uria hau no rangitani ki Tāmaki Lui Arua. Ki ngā puhi rātou ki Ngāti Pikiao. Engari, tupu au ki konei, ki kirikiri roa, ki te taha o tōku nannies. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Can we just say that in real English now for our real English listeners?
Absolutely. Kia ora, everybody. I'm Danielle, and I whakapapa to Danny Work, Tears My Marae, kei reira, through my nan, and also to Ngā Puhi up north, through my Harris line, kei reira, and Ngāti Pikiao. But I'm born and raised in Kirikiri here in the Waikato my whole life. And I now live ki konei I Te Aomutu.
Te Aomutu. Beautiful. And this is where Erere Wairua is based, your business.
Ai, so ki konei ahau ki te wao, he niwi here now. I have a home-based clinic here, and I'm fortunate enough to work here and mahi here. It's a beautiful honor.
Beautiful. And so let's talk into who Danielle was before Erere Wairua came about.
Oh, good question. Straight in the air.
Straight in there.
Firstly, I'm a proud mama. I've got 3 beautiful tamariki. So, yeah, I love being a mama and all the seasons that has brought. Essentially, in terms of my pukenga and the background that I bring with me, it's always been very people-focused, very people-centered. I've always had an interest in, I'm just really interested in the whakamana of people, and I've had a passion for rangatahi, and I've always been naturally gravitated to spaces that are about uplifting and empowering people.
Beautiful.
It's always been natural gravitation.
I love that. And then rangatahi, what does that mean?
Yeah, so working with our students. So I've got a background, and I've been in the teaching space and the youth mentoring space and the facilitative space, fitness training space. Just those seem to be my spaces, just being in spaces that are people focused around manaaki and uplifting and empowering. Yeah, that's where my heart and my ngākau has always gone.
And so Clearly that was the pathway to Erere Wairua. Can we just put it all into what Erere Wairua, sorry, can we just speak into what Erere Wairua means?
Beautiful. Yeah. Erere Wairua really birthed for me or came about for me probably in 2020. I brought a piece that's on my wall just over here actually in the clinic. And if you're familiar, but Erere Wairua is a famous composition written by Sir Henry Melbourne.
Okay.
And there's a whole whakapapa to that waiata. But what really resonated with me in 2020, it's Fly Free Spirit Fly. And the song, E Pūrianei, that's the last line in it. And there's a whole kōrero to the waiata, which I won't go into yet. But if you listen to the kupu in the song, E Pūrianei, scattered by the wind, washed by the rain, transformed by the sun, all doubts are swept away. And it's these last two lines, fly free, spirit fly. And I used to look at those kupu, E Rere Wairua, and that it really connected with something in my manawa. And so, because that's what it was helping me to remember, my wairua, my spirit, and the manu within. That's E Rere Wairua. It's an encompassing and it's embodying of how I mahi.
It's absolutely beautiful is what it is.
Tēnā.
So circling back to your younger self, did you ever see yourself doing this mahi when you were?
That's such a cool question. I've thought about this, because I have a very intimate relationship with my tamaiti aroto, my inner child, and all her wawata, her dreams. And I find it really fascinating, dreams that come up in different, through time. Because when I was a little girl, I actually wanted to be a policewoman. That was my most vivid memory. And I never became a policewoman. But as a little girl, that was a wawata that I carried for a long time. And I thought, well, what was probably the deeper resonance in that? Well, there's this idea of moving with integrity and doing the right thing, ensuring the Māori in the line of boundaries and, order within society. So I think the threads were there. The threads were already there, but the wawata led otherwise.
Beautiful. So, so well thought out and deep. I love the depth of where you go with your inner inquiry. It's beautiful. So, how would you explain Rongoā Māori? So, for somebody that knows nothing about it, how would you explain it?
Well, firstly, I would clarify that Rongoā Māori is not just tinctures and plant medicine. I'm just going to put that out there first because in my experience, and I can only speak to my experience, is that there is quite a common perception out there that when you mention the kupu Rongoā Māori, there can be a common whakaaro thought to go to, can you make? And it's like, let's pull it back a little bit. So Rongoā Māori is the way that I've been taught. Is essentially being invited into a way of living, and it's been invited into a worldview, if you want to call it that, but essentially a way of living. And when you are invited into that through the lens and through the eyes and through the perception of te ao Māori, through our indigeneity, that you are being invited into an ecology of how we think, how we feel, how our senses are essentially ki kupu in relationship with all things, with the interconnectedness of all things.
Yes.
And the pillars and the underpinning tikanga around that, the reverence around that, the wairua around that, the Māori, and we can go into these kupu. So, but yeah, to start simply, and that's going to be something I really want to do today, is stay with simplicity. So please welcome me into that. Bringing it back to simplicity.
No, I think, it's perfect. I think you have no idea how refreshing this kōrero is for me. It's just wonderful. I'm really enjoying the depths that you can go to and and the formula that you're using today as well. So thank you very much. But let's let's tap in a little bit more into that though. What does that mean? Because I think, like what you're saying, is we have these preconceived ideas of what it is, misconceptions of what these things are. And I think it is important to clarify. I feel like there is a lot more that we can, along our journey together in this podcast, we could really unpack quite a lot more. But let's start there, yeah.
Yeah. Kia ora. So because I'm a real visual kinesthetic person, so I'll give it visually. So Rongoā Māori as a way of living, it just imagine a door being opened and you're being invited into a way to be in relationship with the ao and the way that we respect it and the way that we are in relationship with taiao, with the natural elements, with our natural environment, and the relationship between taiao and between people and between wairua and between the balance of all things. Yeah. So Rongoā Māori is very much about how do we ensure balance and how do we restore balance. So it's a perfect blueprint on living. And when we say perfect, it's not from this whakaaro, this thought of perfect as in getting it right, but it's about acknowledging our tupuna way, our atua, our living gods, and everyone who has a role to play in caring for the way we live and the way we can live and be in relationship with our higher selves. And then in doing so, being in relationship with the world around us in balance and in maurito, in calmness, in love, and aroha. Yeah.
So my understanding from where I sit within my perception and where I'm at is that we have the yin, we have the yang, we have the darkness, we have the light, and that is all absolutely perfect. And without it, we wouldn't be able to experience either or. So we can't have the good without the bad. And so if we understand that everything is working in perfect order and that when we do have these negative things come up, so whether they manifest in, in relationships or within weather or whatever. So if you think about floods or any type of serious weather events that we have, it's usually to clear out, whether it be energetic or whether it be just, it's natural and it's nature doing what nature does and respecting those cycles, and the same in regards to when anything negative comes into your life, like whether it be a bad relationship or anything like that. We understand that everything is energetically connected. When that comes through, that whatever that person is that's playing that role, whoever that is, they're actually taking out a lot of energy that no longer serves you. So it's coming from a higher, and I believe with Te Māori is that they have a really beautiful formula and foundation to be able to teach that in a really grounded way for others to be able to step into, their higher consciousness and the awareness of the all that is, right?
Kia ora. Yeah. I was just going to say there's a few kupu there that you brought in, like our cosmology, our worldview on things, groundedness, like something I speak to is root before you rise. And as we acknowledge the polarity in all things, something that I really appreciate about Rongoā Māori and the way that we are in relationship is that it's very grounded and it's naturally rhythmic, that if you really listen and you get feedback from, nature really informs us all the time. And if we really allow ourselves to listen and to sit and see, the natural rhythms are all there. And yeah, that's half of it, is just listening and being open, listening and inviting yourself into the natural rhythms.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of your knowing, has that come from being taught? Has it come from being shown? What is that? What makes you and where did that come from?
Absolutely. So I have had the beautiful, if I look back on my life, Kamuri, something I'm so grateful for is I'm such a believer in divine synchronicities. I've always believed, and it's always been clear witness that the right person crosses your path at the right time. And whether it's also because I'm born on 11/11, no, but I just think it's the beautiful thing to have that happen. And that happened in 2020. And that was a real year of deep healing for me, 2020. And I'd gone on a hikoi with a friend. We'd gone up Rongoā Māori behind me here. And that year I had no intention. I'd already started on my own, like, intentional healing haringa. And she told me about this He Kākano, a rongoā wānanga. And she said, that might be you, Ehua. You know, and this is how things have always opened up in my life. And basically one thing led to another. At the time, there were no spots on this course. And then within a few, you know, as I was like, if things are meant to be, they will be.
Mm.
And that was in the weekend. And come Monday, a space had opened. So I went on this beautiful year-long haerenga with my friends, fellow practitioners, thanks to the vision. And I'm going to say his name, Tumiti Para, who ran Tū Tonu. And yeah, thanks to his vision with his wahine, Danielle, and the space they opened for all of us. And the kaiako that we had come into that space, Te Kōti Waitere, Whaihini Wirangi Kohu Morgan. And I could name so many names, and it's important for me too, because that's where that knowledge came from. And sitting in just beautiful spaces and being able to be receptive and have my heart and mind and ngākau not only opened more, but healed and remembered, through their reverence and through their mātauranga. It was a beautiful haerenga. And
I'm just going to apologize to our English listeners for those that I'm not stopping and interpreting the te reo Māori reo that's coming through, because it's just beautiful listening in. But mātauranga is it's knowledge.
the knowledge.
The knowledge, yeah. And so and wānanga is like we would say maybe a course or
Another cooking for course, or being in space together and sharing knowledge and having knowledge imparted, or might resonate, you know, workshop, but just being in space and having the knowledge carried forward.
So which is absolutely beautiful. So what you're saying is that you decided to put a year aside to step into really developing your understanding of Rongoā Māori.
Yeah, and in retrospect, I think a lot of it, what it was really doing was reconnecting me. Because at that time I don't resonate with the kupu identity crisis, but in transparency, I was coming out of.
We call it in the spiritual community the dark night of the soul.
Yeah, you could call it. I was definitely I was going through a dark night of a. Yep. I'll pick that up. I was transitioning. I was coming out of a religious paradigm and way of thinking and way of living.
Yes.
And I thank it for that period in my life. And it was really about me reconnecting, actually, more re-indigenizing something that Whaihini Wirangi really installed back within me, putting that korowai back on, that korowai of remembrance, and reconnecting to what was all in here, always all in here. And that was a lot of what He Kākano really gifted to me and through who I was in that space with.
What a beautiful experience.
It really was. There was something we always used to say, because whenever we'd come in, we'd all sit around the tepu, quite literally. And something Timmy and my friends, my cohort there, something we always expressed was often the most vulnerable things come out around the simplicity of a table and over a cup of tea.
Absolutely.
You know, and that was really offered to us, being able to sit there in a chair amongst your friends, your rongoā practitioners, but really as humans, to be able to sit there, and the point of conversations were never what do you do, but always led with how are you?
Yes.
Who are you? Where are you? You know, and even that, to have that weekly, to come back to ko waikwe, who are you? How are you? Not what are you? There's a real difference.
Yes.
It was a beautiful year.
Feels like, you know, something that you wouldn't want to end.
No, it was a really special time, and it's still right there. It's something that, you know, I hold on to now, and I draw on every day.
Are they still running this wānanga, or is that finished now?
Oh, as far as I know, it only ran for that year, and since then it's been really beautiful to see us all kind of move into our different spaces and see we've landed with our pukenga and how we are upholding the mātauranga, the knowledge that has been shared and given to us.
Beautiful. So let's talk into that. What are the other rongoā practitioners doing with their mahi? Are they all doing the same as you? I know that they would have all stepped into it in their own unique ways. So what else are they doing? What else are they doing?
Yes, okay, I'm going to give a shout out. Yes, we've got Nikki, who's beautiful whānau over here in Putararu, Rongoā Tukuiho. They're doing amazing things over there. We've got, what's that, sorry?
Do you know in particular how they've gone and used this rongoā for themselves and their gifts and activated within them? Like, I know for you went off and did a bit of Reiki to kind of work more in alignment with the energy healing. Are they doing land clearings? What is their choice of rongoā that they've decided to step into?
Yeah, so I know Nikki, etc., over at Rongoā Tukuiho, they do everything in there from miri to rongoā rākau, to the making of, Māori rongoā pharmaceutical basically on site. When I first moved here, I went for a drive over and sat with Nikki, and their spaces are tāhua. Yeah, it's a beautiful space and what they've cultivated in there.
And feels like there's more than one person in this as well. Yeah.
They've got a whole team in there. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. And so what do you so with your mahi, where have you taken this? Where have you decided to, we've talked into Reiki, and you're doing miri?
I miri through words. So as we were taught in the way that I was taught, He Kākano, as the name of our rongoā program suggested, pick up the seeds that resonate and leave the ones that don't.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And so what became really evident for me through my haerenga through that year and my re-indigenization and reclamation, with thanks again to Whaihini Wirangi. And I may mention her name time and time again and I may get emotional speaking.
That's okay. That's beautiful.
She really helped me whakarongo and hear anō my manu within, and to reactivate my manu kia erere ana. Yeah, that always touches a really tender spot within me. And to have her look at me, especially after so long, when my own voice, my oro, I couldn't hear it. Yeah, she really helped me remember and hear my song. Yeah. And remember my voice.
Always special to have our kuia come in and do that for us. So beautiful. And so she activated your voice, and so now you use this within your Reiki sessions, or do you call it Reiki? What do you call? How do you? Let's go back a step and say, what is miri? So people say miri. Oh yeah, you give massage.
Yeah. Kia ora. So yes, we were trained, miri as I've learnt it, but haven't picked it up in terms of working with my hands miri, purely because that's just not how I'm meant to use, how rongoā is meant to work through me. It's a choice. And that's really important too, is to really align with rongoā in the way that you're meant to. If it doesn't feel right for you, don't pick it up. I think it just felt to acknowledge that,
Right.
So when I say miri through words, there are three forms of rongoā that I offer in clinic, but I'll speak to two to keep it simple. One, we have the Reiki hono, and particularly I resonated with the original.
Hono, because I was trying to find the word for it, and I'm like, I know the Reiki, I should know what so hono is our word for Reiki.
Aye, and we have our own whakapapa to that as well.
Right.
So
yes,
I just like to say that, and that's really nice to make a connection between us, is that when I went on my Reiki haerenga, just because it was of interest for me to really go through the original lineage and whakapapa, because as we know, we have Western Reiki, and not that it's not about one being better than the other, they're just different. But I was personally interested in the original whakapapa and training under a Java. Yeah, kia ora. And even before Java, Yolanda has been my teacher.
Yes.
Who then made me aware of a Java. So thank you, Yolanda.
We love you, Yolanda.
Yeah, absolutely. Something, Catherine, that really just you know, all about connecting the dots and finding the wānanga, the connections. It really intrigued me when I had learned that, and I don't know enough of the whakapapa here, so I won't speak too deeply to it. But when I had learned that there was a cohort of our people who had gone to Japan, and I can't speak further to it because I don't want to get it wrong. But
Is this back in Hawaii or is this from Aotearoa?
from Aotearoa.
What?
Yeah, and I'm not going to say names out of fear of getting it wrong. But what intrigued me was like, if we are connecting in there, you know, there's a connection here to the same puna of rongoā, to the same well of healing and medicine. Call it Reiki, call it honohono. We're connecting into the same source.
I have the same. I've just actually had a video. I did a video this morning on that exact thing. Is that it's all the same thing? It's just different ways of saying it.
Different, yeah, just in.
Yeah, different. Yeah, that's an interesting point that you're making there. Let's talk to that.
Different ways in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just saw the whanonga, the connection, like knowing that we had a cohort of our people go to Japan, and I thought, well, there's something here that we're all connecting with on a wider level, on an indigenous level. There's correlating indigenous wisdom here. And so, yeah, that intrigued me.
Yeah, I guess so when we circle back to different ways in, you know, we look at with Reiki, right? So we have our, I don't even know the right wording because I'm all about feeling. I'm not about the talking to it, you know, actually stepping into the space for me was really hard. It's been really hard to be able to interpret my knowing into human words, you know, because everything that I've had has all been about embodiment. It's not been about teaching it.
Beautiful.
It's all come from within, you know. And so when I think about like with Reiki and things like that, like of course we have all the symbols that we use. We have the karakia that they have, the prayer that we have, that we you know, to activate the energy or just to get into alignment. That, you know, when I sit and do where I feel like I'm coming from more of a midi space, again, hasn't been taught to me, just been embodied and taught through doing and through vision and through watching my mom and through, you know, my nana and all of the other bits and pieces. And I don't want to talk too much about me, but what I'm trying to say is that to me, it all feels the same, you know, like even though, you know, we may be saying, oh, you know, well, Māori, we do it like this and we karakia like this. And in all honesty, when I'm sitting in there doing Reiki or mirimi, I don't know which is different. You know, I'm doing the same thing. So I'm working with the same energy, and it is just whatever whakapapa is strongest, or, you know, what knowing it is for that individual is depending on where I move in that space. Does that feel aligned for you too? Is that similar for you?
Yeah. And thank you for that. And a kupu that came through there is tākune, intention.
Intention. Exactly right. It's all the same intention. Exactly.
When the intention, tika, when the intention is right, when the intention is in integrity and for the right reasons to heal, to be a conduit of healing. Yeah. And holding that intention in its reverence and in its tika and in its pono, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes back to, is that you can be, you know, and this is what Ajava speaks to so much, you know, in his teachings and in his classes and on his podcasts. You know, it's always, we've got to forget about all the noise and all the conditioning, and it's about tapping in to the Reiki energy. You know, some would say tapping into source, some would say tapping into taiao.
Into te kore.
Kore, thank you.
Yeah, ka pai.
Yeah, so yeah, and so that's we're all it's all the same thing, you know. And that's the thing, like I feel like we separate it because our human consciousness or the human vessel needs that to be able to compartmentalize and put things into boxes. But when we're actually really tapping into the all that is, and you'll understand this, it's all there are no words. It is just about tapping into that inner knowing and allowing the highest good and the highest love and the highest light and the highest of whatever it needs to come through to activate within whoever is in front of you, to put them back into alignment with their whole and complete self. So that whatever is creating disease or distortion, or, you know, is able to come back into alignment so that they themselves can heal themselves. And so I think there's a lot of the time we kind of sit there and, you know, especially when you see these people that are sitting in their spiritual ego, and it's like, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this. And God, I just want to say, can you sit down? Because you're doing nothing but making a lot of noise. You know, actually, at the end of the day, we are all equal. There is no hierarchy in this space. It is all that, you know, as long as the only difference is, can you get out of the way enough? As long as you can, your human self can get out of the way, you're an amazing conduit for source to come through you to help with that alignment.
I'm gonna riff off you there, and that's something that I really loved. What I loved about Ajava, and Yolanda brought the same refreshing teaching style, is I love Ajava. He really grounds the practical aspect of healing. And like you mentioned, spiritual ego, you know, in this healing space, and I'm not saying this as judgment, I'm saying it as observation, that the truth is that people can become clouded by spiritual ego.
Yes.
You know, and it's something to be mindful of and to be discerning around. And something I love that Ajava said, like on a very practical level, we have a job to do. And when we put our hands on somebody, we are doing a job no different to somebody else. You know, we're not here to judge the map or the territory. We have a job to do. And, you know, I find there's just a real sobering groundedness in that, and the practicality of what we do. It's no different to what others do. We are inviting a space. We have the privilege of holding a space.
That's right. And I think that's what I love about, you know, our culture, is that it's very much about, as much as it is a privilege to have somebody come and give their time to put you in a space of alignment, it's also a privilege to be the conduit to be able to do that. Right. It's reciprocal, you know, reciprocity. It's not about, you know, it's not about a one-way transaction. This is happening both ways, you know. And Ajava also talks into that, you know, when I'm sitting on a table with somebody, it's a beautiful space because I get to sit in meditation. I get to sit in that beautiful Reiki energy. I get healed, they get healed, you know, it's reciprocity. It's not just how the Western view of things is that I'm just giving until I'm depleted. It's that, you know, which comes back to the natural flow of the interconnectedness of all things back.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that kupu up, reciprocity, and that's what I love too. What's coming through as well, I always love Donna Kerridge, she's just doing amazing things in the Rongoā space. And something I love that she always said, you know, we have a job to do, and to do it the best that we can. When you are in service to Rongoā, in service to people, in service to relationship, just do your job the best you can. And I love when you look at the parallels, and I love how she also said we are all when we're talking about indigeneity as well, let's acknowledge that we are also indigeneity, we are all indigenous to somewhere. That was the thing she also said, that medicine is universal, indigenous wisdom and knowledge is universal, and we all have access to that in our own ways. And like you said, there's no idea of hierarchy. What I love is we have these laws, LORE, laws of sacred reciprocity. What a beautiful sentiment to be given an encoding and a blueprint of how balance works. And it is around the ecology, not the ego, of giving, receiving, and returning.
Yes.
Returning to whenua, returning, acknowledging the relationship between heaven and earth, between rangi and papa, and that it's all around us, that way back to balance.
Yes, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So when we look at it from healer to healer, and when I say that, I don't see that as in like healers, as in anyone's above anybody. So that's my other thing, is that for me, healers is quite a normal word in my whānau, because I've been surrounded in them. You know, my whānau are all, like I've said, my great grandfather was tohunga. And then it comes down the line, as you know, and then my grandmother was a healer, and my mother's a healer, and I'm a healer, all doing it in different ways. But from healer to healer, let's talk into the alignment with knowing that higher alignment. When we look at that reciprocity, and we see that within other spaces, when people continue to just take, you know, and they don't know their limits, how do you establish boundaries within that space?
Good question.
Still working on it?
In relation, just for a bit of context, in relationship to other people, is that what you're meaning?
I would say it will manifest in that as well, but it's just sort of like looking at it from an energetic point of view, someone who works with energy, I should say, and has a high sensitivity to it. How do you create safe boundaries energetically as well as in the physical?
Yeah, good question. So boundaries and take. So boundaries was something, a haerenga that I had to learn. I really had to learn boundaries. I never used to have any. I hadn't been taught boundaries growing up.
You were raised in a beautiful environment with your nannies and like in a village environment. Is that correct? Am I talking into that correctly?
Oh, I was raised by a village. Yeah, so I was raised by my nan, and when she passed, went to my other nan who's still alive, and by my aunties, and yeah, I was given many world views and just different ways of seeing things and being with life. But one thing I hadn't learned was boundaries and how to have boundaries for myself.
Yeah. Aroha.
Can you go back to how we want to speak to this again?
Yeah. So we're talking into boundaries within your mahi and within just life in general. And so the question is really when you're in this healing space, because as we know, as healers, we naturally just want to give, we want to fix, we want to do all of that. And sometimes it can be at our detriment, right? And and a lot of the time we work that out in the after versus, when we have the opportunity to do something about it, at the time. So my question is, how do you, in this space, create clear boundaries? And I've got a couple of ideas of how I can help you with that, but I just want to see what comes up for you.
Yeah. The first thing that came to mind was one, consent. Yeah, boundaries around consent. And that's acknowledging what is safe for my client, my kiritaki, safety around their boundaries, and acknowledging that when they are coming into space and I'm here to hold space with them, a boundary of consent, I'm not acknowledging it's not only them in the room, they are bringing with them their whakapapa, their pūrākau, their stories. So something that's really important at the forefront is tikanga is, consent with how much wants to be opened and connected with and, honoured in that space.
I absolutely love that because I know a lot of, I've worked in the space and I've seen it over a lot of years where, you have different styles of healing, and there's, some old school where they just go in, they rip it in and rip it out, and they just go, now it's just time for you to process, and then you've got healers, which sounds like you're more like me, where I say, let's do this slowly and softly. Because we don't actually have to, it's not an all or nothing kind of a situation. We've got a journey here. This is over a lifetime.
Absolutely. And that's probably why we resonate so well, is because my way that I hold space is, and I come from a space, I personally believe that the way that a healer holds space, or I do anyway, is that I hold space the way I needed it held for me. And healing for me needed to be very slow and very gentle. When I'm in the boundary, for me, I've learned my ngākau, my heart feels safest in an environment that is very tender and very soft and doesn't move fast. And so that is how I like to cultivate space for my kiritaki, that we're not going to go fast. It's going to be gentle. It'll be deep. It'll be as deep as it needs to be.
Right.
But if it's not, I'm listening and I'm moving with you and your whakapapa and the consent of how you need to, what needs to move through you.
It's funny, like for me, I've had korero with Wairoa, and I've had to say to them, whoa, 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 whoa. Because if we understand, we understand that Wairoa, they don't have the same limitations as us. They're free from the physical vessel. And so I'm the one that's saying, hey, remember the shifts and changes that are going to happen for this human, this being right now that you're creating. We need to pull it back. We need to address this slowly. So I've had to manage Wairoa, then the other way around, To me, there are times, and as we talk into seasons, you've talked about seasons in this korero already, there are times where they are in a space of where they are able to do the deep work. And that is when we can rip it in and rip it out and actually, but it's about holding them through that after space as well. It's not about just, there you go, up to you now, away you go. You've got to actually be able to, have that, have that safety net for them while they go through the bits that happen after that healing. But also, I think for both of us, you know, having such a close connection with our nanas, I'm just looking at mine in a photo right now. She was soft, you know, my nana was gentle. And so I feel the same for your nana. You know, they were strong. Don't get me wrong, strong.
Yeah.
But the way that they would move around the space was a lot more nurturing, more maternal, more more feminine. And then we had my koro, who was very much the, you know, rip the wound open and just let it, you know, let it go. So we had that beautiful, perfect balance. And, you know, knowing when to work with both is very important, I think, because I think there's a space and place for everything. Again, go back to our original koro.
Yeah. So true. So true. Thank you for acknowledging that. Something else that came up around boundaries too, and I've learned through holding space, is capacity. I think it's really important. Your boundaries in terms of your capacity as a space holder and as a healer. Something that's important for me for the job that I have to do is when I'm showing up, the preparation beforehand. And it's something I've seen in the mahi, and as was taught to me, ensuring that I'm primed, that my vessel, that I've put in the preparation that I need, because there's a lot of I think it's just useful to speak to. There's a lot of invisible labor that can be overlooked in holding space, period.
Absolutely.
As a healer, as a facilitator, you know, holding space, not everyone can do it. And you know, holding space, you are cultivating space. And let's just acknowledge there's a whole Māori in that. There's a whole energy and essence. And you, as much as we have the privilege of being in service to that and bringing that we are in reciprocity with that as well. So, you know, when I'm showing up, my preparation is beginning days before, and then I'm continuing to cultivate that space so I can just do my job well to be able to hold space with you. So I think it's just important to acknowledge that, and checking in with capacity and being very real with as a personal practice. And we're talking energy hygiene here.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, something I'm really passionate about and intentional with is energy hygiene. No different to how we take care of our vessel and our tinana, our bodies, through washing and cleansing and adorning, you know. The same thing with energy. How are we taking care of the Māori, of our energy hygiene? What kind, before I'm coming into Te Wāhine to work here, my kiritaki arrives. They don't know this, but I've been thinking about the input that is coming in. I'm thinking about silence and space internally. I'm ensuring that my vessel has created space, that I'm doing everything possible to ensure clarity, to ensure a clear channel. Because why? Because in my view, that's just the right thing to do. That's getting into the reverence that comes with this responsibility. Like with anything else, you know, we have a responsibility to rongoā. And if you choose to be in this space, like everyone in jobs, we have a responsibility. These are the responsibilities that I choose to pick up to honour the Māori and the energy that we're working with.
This conversation, this kōrero is so refreshing. Thank you so much. Honestly, I want to come for a healing. You're beautiful.
Thank you for inviting the kōrero and making me feel so comfortable.
But, you know, I think, so we'll just go back to a real basic formula around boundaries and looking at that as in our, you know, opening and closing, right? So when we think about like, but what the depth that you've gone to is absolutely perfect. I'm so grateful for that, because there is a lot of that goes unseen. Like I just held a container for you know, for a weekend or a retreat for people to come back into their wholeness. And that started months ahead. You know, there was kōrero from Wairua that started years ago. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry, months before the container and then years before. And then, you know, to finally have that actually land into the physical was amazing. But, you know, there was karanga that happened a week before, you know, where I was calling in the Māori of my tupuna, of the whenua, of, you know, the nature, all that is, you know, I was bringing that into the space to be able to open up the container and bring in all of their higher selves and all of the, you know, their healing teams. And there was so much that went into that I don't sit in front of a group and say, now this is what I've done. You know, like you don't do that, because that's not what it's about. It's just about knowing that all of that energy, that that spirit is in the room to be able to activate whatever those individuals are needing in that time. And, I mean, there may be time, of course, now that we're going to talk into this part, with karakia, and opening karakia and closing karakia, now that is a way that when we do our healing work, we open it and we close it. And this is a kōrero that James Webster talked into on our previous podcast together around his process within how he does his mahi. And I think that is a really beautiful way to energetically have boundaries. So these are talking about blueprints. These are things that have been set up for us in order for us to know that this is when we turn the light on and this is when we turn the light off from the specific container that we're working in. And then in the same way, when we look at Reiki, right, we have the symbol that we use to close the energy off, right? And so if we think about those formulas, there are many different spaces of how we can energetically create those boundaries. But then there's also the overgiver, right? So then we talk into the healing in us, which is also another kōrero that I was having this morning around filling the bucket. I was filling up a bucket to return to somebody because it was paru and it was dirty and I wanted to clean it for them. And it had dishwashing liquid in it. And I turned the bucket on. I went off to do something else, as you do. When I came back, the bucket was overflowing. And it was very symbolic to me as a healer, where I'm just constantly overgiving when actually maybe, it's not a gift when you're giving someone a bucket that's overflowing on them. It's the overgiver and the healer. So how do we create boundaries around that? And I think it is about following that blueprint, that when that switch is off, that switch is off. We can't keep going back to it. And it's still something that I'm learning to this day, because all I want is the highest good of all and to everybody to be on the highest vibration and frequency and just feeling amazing and connected to everything, but we also have to respect that they're going to come to that in their own time. And sometimes just planting the seed is enough, Another kōrero that I had over the weekend, sometimes planting the seed is enough. We don't have to watch it grow. We don't have to fertilize it. We don't have to do all of that. That can be up to them, or maybe we can. It's just dependent on what is happening at that time and having that adaptability as well, I think, for each and every individual. So approaching each client, each wairua that comes to you as an individual, but also being very aware and assertive and conscious of what it is, how much we're giving.
Kōrero e wā. I really liked how you acknowledged that too, like karakia. That's another, everything Māori starts and finishes with karakia. Karakia is the thread that runs through everything alongside intention that we do. And it's, when it comes to boundaries, like you say, we open with clean karakia, which directs intention. Our karakia is to direct intention and light and vibration and form and really ground it. And we close with it. And it's in reciprocity with trust, that because we are opening spaces, opening portals with people, opening ngākau, opening bodies as they're ready to, opening wairua. And that, like you say, we just have really clean, safe, energetic processes, opening and closing those spaces with reverence.
Yes.
Intention so important, how we're moving with intention. Same with karakia. How are we using karakia and how are we in relationship with karakia?
I think that's what's coming up a lot, when I see on social media and things like that, with people talking into what is karakia. And it's not just saying the words. It's really feeling into what those words are, which is why it's important that what I always say, can we have the English version as well? Because so that people can feel into what's being said. And oh man, the lights that go on when they see the English version and they actually understand the wording, they're just like, wow, so much more respect for what we've just done, and that inclusivity. I said the word, the inclusiveness of having included them in that space as well is like they feel really privileged and honored to be in that. So I think, we've, in a way, like I know that that's not necessarily been the intention, but gatekeeping our mātauranga now has got to end, and we've actually really got to include everybody into this space if we want the interconnectedness that we've all been, saying that we want, that equality. I think that's really important too. And I think that's Rongoā. It's rongoā for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where, it's been a privilege to have, one kupu and whakaaro and embodiment that I love is the concept of tuakiritanga. And if we're talking about inclusivity, is that, under the skin, we are all the same. And I love that when people come in here, whether they're tauiwi, Māori, whoever they are, and the whakapapa they bring, is that the first thing they usually do when they come in here is they feel the safety, but they feel the fact that they can connect to something that is bigger than just being Māori. Connecting into essentially what we're all looking for is that wholeness, like you say, and that toe, that calm that we are all essentially seeking, and I find a lot are looking for and just wanting to return to.
And I think it's that connection to mind, body, and soul. I think a lot of the time we're looking at we're stuck in the mind and the body, and we're forgetting about the wairua aspect, And so when they come into a space with you or I, or anybody else that does this mahi, they get to that full alignment, they're not separate, and it's that disconnection that is creating the disease, the distortion, the illness, it's the but it's also an illusion,
Yeah.
able to remind them of that and to be able to bring them back into their own sovereign power as well as also the goal and the key in this process, I think, so I just want to talk also into it being Rongoā Māori and erere wairua. It's not just for Māori though, is it?
Rongoā, being invited essentially into the remembrance of who you truly are. That's what's coming through, and kia whakamana and remembering the strengths of who you are. And when I say that, something that's really important in the way that I move, and I loved how you keep bringing up the kupu alignment, kia tūpono, to bring back into alignment your true nature and the remembrance of your essence, your Māori, is do we not all desire that? Is that not the common human denominator, to be able to feel and know who you are, ko wai koe, and where are my feet? Where do my feet belong? And where does my ngākau line up with what I know to be true for me? And that's...
And I think in a space of being on the table, you are given the opportunity to sit with that kōrero within yourself. I think that's really, what is happening in that space as well. Again, as we know, that's if that's where you're at your soul's, point of focus, it may not be that. It might just be that you lie on the table and you go, I feel really good after that. Don't know why. That's a stage of awareness.
And that happens too. And, sometimes the beauty in that is we don't need to know why. I think that can be half of the healing, and something that I personally love. I love it when somebody falls asleep on the table.
Oh, yeah.
I really do.
It's a pretty good snore they get on, eh, girl? And that's okay. That's good. That's good. That's good feedback for us.
It is, because, something, when we spend, like I said, there's so much noise out there, and I believe that is half the issue and dis-ease today, is because of the congestion of noise and pace and rate of life, that to be able to be invited back into a space of slowing down for one, remembering our natural rhythm, which is a lot slower, to come back into silence, kia whakarongo, to be able to listen essentially to your own heartbeat, anō, to fall asleep with that, beautiful.
And I think, like, when I look at it from wairua space, like for me, we, so many different downloads coming through at once. But when we look at the fact that a lot of us, we don't for me, I believe that we have many incarnations, right? And we look at from a physical lens, we see people that are, this is what's just come up for me. We see people that aren't doing anything with their lives, and from a physical lens, like, get a job, do this, do that. But we have absolutely no idea, well, some of us do, but a lot of us don't, what that soul is recovering from a past life, And so I think it's similar to when you're holding them in the space, but if that's what that soul calls in, which is just to have a really deep, nourishing soul sleep, to re-energize deeper parts of themselves because they can within that space, that is absolutely perfect too. And I think that's the thing about healing, is it's about not having any preconceived ideas about how this is supposed to go or what this is supposed I've had some clients come and, I've got them on the table and they haven't felt anything, they're kind of like, oh, you see them moving around, fidgeting and all that. No, I'm doing the work because I know my work, We get off the table and then for the next 2 hours even, they're just and they're just unpacking everything. And they're like, I didn't really think I was going to say this. And you're like, this is the rongoā. You may not have felt it on the table, but this is your way of processing the rongoā that you just received. Well, this is part of it, And so again, it's like not having any preconceived ideas of what rongoā looks like or what miri looks like or what Reiki looks like,
Yeah, yeah. Kia ora. Something, a kupu that's coming through is really ensuring neutrality. Yeah, and holding a space of neutrality, exactly like you said. We're not coming in with preconceived ideas, and letting te kore be te kore, that the space and whatever's coming through for them or not, what's meant to in the moment.
And that's really circled back to, sometimes it's just about planting the seed. It's not about watching the whole tree grow. This is beautiful blessing and teaching that my mother gave me, is that, we're out there collecting all of these tools in our tool belt, or in our kitty, I should say. She says, kitty, you're putting all these tools into your kitty, and then one day you'll look into your kitty and you'll go, oh, I need that now. And, and sometimes that's all we're doing is, is holding a position and maybe sometimes we're just turning on, activating that within them that, you can come back to this one day. One day you will come back to this, and it'll be easier for you to tap into because you've been in this space. So again, you just don't know what this rongoā is going to look like. And it's not about that. It's about knowing that that's what you're just creating a space for that. I think it's not about external validation. I think that's a big part as well,
Sure. And I think that really threads in nice with boundaries again, that when you come in with no presuppositions around how something is going to go, I won't go into the whole kōrero, but I was fortunate, our cohort was fortunate enough to sit in space at Mangatō Marae over here, and we had Ātarangi Muru come in with Ma Queenie Ruth Tai. It was just a really powerful, humbling space to be in.
Sorry, just quickly, is she from up north?
Aye.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
And Ātarangi Muri, I got a masterclass in neutrality on this particular day.
As we all do from time to time, don't you worry.
Absolutely. And the way that it happened was the way that it was meant to happen. But the short version of it is that the key thing that I learned from that experience was her words that echo, when anybody, whether we're in the healing space, holding space, remember this is their experience, not and it's a real good way to ensure the ego, because ego is not bad or good, ego is, but that the ego stays out of the room, but that it ensures that their experience is their experience. And we're there to be witness to that and to support that, and that we don't magnetize to it.
No.
Or, we don't give transference onto it.
That's right.
Keeping that space really clean.
That's it.
Clean. Yeah, energetically.
So beautiful. I did a healing on my mum. We did quite a bit of few stages of healing. And what I loved about the interconnectedness of me and her was, I'm a seer as well. So, like I'm matakite, so I see, I feel spirit, I do all the things. But my mum is too, right? And so we're in this space. I'm doing this healing on mama again, very much neutral.
I want to share that with your mama.
So cool. And she, at the end, she gave me we had a kōrero on what came up for her. The same wairua, so the same tupuna I saw in the room, she saw in the room. I was activating different parts of her. She was saying I could feel it opening up. It was just so much alignment and confirmations. And so, yes, we are definitely, we're not there to personalize someone else's experience in this space. But when you have those confirmations like that, it makes it pretty special and pretty amazing. Like confirmations are always great, but when you're both seeing the same tupuna and you're both feeling the same activation, and she knows exactly the work that I'm doing on her, and she knows the waiter that's come into the room to support that, there's nothing better.
Beautiful. And I like how you brought that up because, like you say, it's also nice to be affirmed at times too, and it's
Yes.
okay to be affirmed and have that acknowledged at times too.
Yes, and I think sometimes, as you go along in the journey, you know your mahi, you know what's in alignment and what's made up, what you're making up in your mind to make it something. And at the beginning, I think a lot of the time it is good to keep quiet and not to ask, because that can disrupt the flow while you're still learning about what is what and what is what, as you go along in your journey and you start, you've got tohu, like for me, I'll have a lot of manu that come in, and manu will sit at the window fluttering, and that for me is, I can say, okay, I can speak to that, so I have outside confirmations. The last, one of the recent healings that I did, we had a kiriru come in. I asked my tupuna to take away something that was distracting me from putting this client into alignment. And then, 2 seconds later, kiriru came in and went bang on the wall, and I had to come out hop off the table and guide this kiriru out. But it was us working in unison with clearing this entity off this. And entities, what are entities? There's stories and negative energy that has been created by the human that that is an illusion that we just clear away. And when we understand that that's all that is, it has no power over you, and it has no power over the person. It is just time for that story or that thing that's been floating around to come to an end, and to have that cleared out helped with Tupuna, and makes it so much easier, right? So understanding that we have a healing team, they have a healing team, and we have the unseen working with us to be able to create those shifts and changes as well. But when you're at the beginning of your journey, I think it is important, because I've seen this with a lot of other healers where they're still tapping into this aspect of their healing self. They do massage and all of a sudden they're getting these downloads and things, and they share it with a client, and the client goes, no, and the minute that client does that, it shuts down that connection with the client as well as the healer, and so I think unless you are really clear and your channel is very clear, it's important that you keep those little things, and you allow, I would say, the universal elements to give you those confirmations later on. And then once you're very strong in that space, that's when you can start having that kōrero with your client. So just little tools from my kite to share.
Thank you. That's refreshing and reaffirming for me to hear. So tēnā koe rua. Really, like, it's also having a respect with the relationship of trust, trust. And like you say, let's acknowledge, like you've said, the fact we're not working alone. We never are. So trusting and being held by the seen and the unseen, ka wairo mai and raro, and doing our mahi again, the best that we can.
Yeah, for the highest good of all, and everyone involved. Yeah. Look, Kare, we could talk all day, because I just think you're amazing. I can't wait to do this again. And thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your mātauranga, sharing your knowledge with us. And I just know there's so much more to unpack, and I'm really looking forward to it, if you're open to it.
Oh, absolutely. I just want to say thank you for inviting me into the space to kōrero with you, and to for your trust, for trusting me, and that I'm ready to share.
We know this is higher and bigger than us. Like, we were divinely guided to one another. Well, I was divinely guided to you anyway.
So just the hononga, like you say, those little synchronicities that just weave through time and space, never cease to amaze and surprise me.
So beautiful. Hey, thank you so much. Now, to end with this, we're going to just play James again. Is there anything you wanted to kōrero before we do close the container?
Oh, I just wanted to say ngā mihi anō kia koe e hoa, and just thank you for inviting the space, and thank you for everything that you do, and for your matakititanga, and clearly what you see to invite forward in me. I notice all those little things, I'm all about kupu and the resonance of kupu, and to even see you say something, Danielle's time to shine in our opening. Oh, what an atia to set! What an entryway to invite and to open, and to invite that me into this space, and just to connect with you and to do what we do.
So beautiful. My pleasure. All right. Lots of love, Danielle.
Arohanu. Kia io te ao. Can I leave you with a closing poem?
I'd love that. Please.
It's one of my own poems. She filled her basket with self-loving thoughts and then went and taught all her sisters how to weave.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Kua taua i te mauri, oho te mauri, alangi te mauri.